All of us, I think, have experienced challenges or moments in life that felt insurmountable. In the summer of 1972, I experienced one of those events. A hurricane system called Agnes hovered over north central Pennsylvania and upstate New York for way, way too long. Like most folks in that part of Appalachia, my family evacuated our home walking through chest-deep water to get to higher ground. When the storm system finally moved away, we began the task of cleaning up. Whole towns and cities had been submerged in river water for days. When the water receded, it left behind 3 feet of mud on every floor of every house. My church youth group participated in mud bucket brigades. Take a bucket of mud from the person on your right, and pass it to the one on your left, over and over again. We were just kids. I was 10 and turned 11, and my friends were 11, 12, 13, 14. We worked as many days as we could. When one house was finished, we began the one next door. The magnitude of that disaster felt insurmountable. In the gospel today, we heard another story with an insurmountable problem. 5,000 hungry people are coming toward Jesus. That is a lot of people. Bass Hall in Fort Worth seats 2,000 people. So more than twice that amount of people are coming to hear Jesus teach. And Jesus decides on a whim he would like to feed all these people. He turned to Philip and asked, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" "Just run on down to the Kroger, Philip, and pick up loaves of bread for 5,000 people." It was an outrageous question, and it would be even more so 2,000 years ago before Mrs. Baird's. Philip responded to Jesus just like an accountant. It would take 6 months' wages to feed all these people. He's working through the logic of the problem and trying to address it in human terms. It felt like an insurmountable situation. In the crowd, there is one person with food. It is a child. A boy has brought 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. It was enough to feed a family for a week, but for a huge crowd, it's just a drop in the bucket. And the people there know it. As I sat with the gospel last week, I kept coming back to the child. It's odd that only one person with food, and it's odd that that person is a child. And the amount of food being carried by that child is more than a child would eat. He's not carrying a tuna fish sandwich. He's got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The child is not carrying lunch. This food is more than bread and more than fish. He has brought oblations. Holding nothing back for himself, he offered everything to Jesus. When Jesus received the gifts, he told the people to sit. And then he took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed the bread to them. Where have we heard those words before? Every Sunday. Right here. This is not just the feeding of people, it is a Eucharist in the grass. The child offered gifts from our world, gifts that reflect human partnership with the Creator. God consecrated the gifts, set them apart for a divine purpose, and the narrator told us the purpose. Jesus intended this meal to be a sign, a revelation of his identity, his divinity. When the meal was over and all the excess food was brought back together, the people knew. All week long, I came back to these questions. I wonder what the child saw. I wonder what when the child knew he was called to be the oblationer, the one who would bring the offering to God. Although the flood cleanup felt insurmountable to tweens and teens passing buckets of mud, God's presence was very visible in the summer of 1972. There were volunteers from all over the United States passing buckets with us. The Red Cross was there with drinkable water, food, and supplies. Community formed and needs were met, all of us offering whatever we could to our neighbor. Today, if you drive through Corning, New York, home of the Corning Glass Works, Elmira, New York, Lawrenceville, Pennsylvania, and on, you would never guess what happened there 52 years ago. When we come through experiences that, in human terms, are insurmountable, we are changed. The disciples and the people sitting in the grass that day were changed. The boy who gave all his food was changed. Everyone along that mud bucket brigade was changed. God is known to us in the breaking of bread, in the forming of community, in the offering of all that we have and all that we are. Last year, during our stewardship season, the youth of St. Christopher's were given miter boxes and invited to offer a gift to God as well. Some of the boxes had pocket change in them, and some had bills in them, and others had handwritten offerings. One read, "I can pray for our church every week." Another one read, "I can be an acolyte and serve in our worship." For young people, pledging money is an insurmountable problem, but our youth found ways to offer themselves to God. All three of the vignettes I shared with you today involve the oblations or offerings of children. People who do not have voting rights or a driver's license, a job, or a big bank account. They had none of the stuff we associate with the power and privilege, the things we think we need to change the world. The children offered to God what they had: time, labor, food, a willingness to serve, a desire to pray. This is, I think, God's call to us from the very beginning of creation. God desires for us to be in partnership with God, to offer our gifts, to invite God's blessing, and to participate in the bringing of God's kingdom on earth, right here where we live. Amen.